Awesome. All right. Well, welcome everyone to the People's Podcast. And we are here with some special guests. We are going to be talking about a potential revolution in social media. And so we're here joined by some of the founders, creators of the Panquake platform. And we're going to be talking about the context behind, what's motivated them to create Panquake as a social media alternative. What's happening, what's been kind of the evolution in social media, what's the political context that it's situated in, and what separates it from the existing social media companies, and what could it potentially offer and bring us. And so I'm going to hand it over to Annalise. Of course, I'm Nick Brana, National Coordinator with the People's Party. Should have said that from the top, but joined by Annalise, our advisory council on the People's Party. And we are happy to be here for this episode. So yeah, Annalise, I'll hand it over to you to introduce our guests.
Thank you. Yes, my name is Annalise Garcia. Super happy to be here with you guys for another episode of the People's Podcast. So I'm going to introduce our guests. First, he is the founder of the Yale Privacy Lab, which, by the way, my favorite college professor of all time is from Yale, and he did this class on death, which was amazing. I can't remember his name right now, but we'll talk about that at some point. He is also the principal researcher at ExpressVPN Digital Security Lab, and he is a privacy advisor at Panquake. Please welcome Sean O'Brien. Hey, Sean.
Hey, how are you?
Hey, I'm good. Thank you for being here. And of course, we have a journalist, activist, and the founder of Panquake. Please welcome, all the way from Russia, Susie Dawson. Hey, Susie.
Hey, Annalise. Thanks for having me.
Thank you for being here. I know it's like 5 a.m. over there, so we really, really appreciate you taking the time. I know you must be exhausted.
It's cool. It's a pleasure.
All right. Awesome. So I guess the first thing I really wanted to ask about was, I want to start with you, Susie. Tell us a little bit about your background, how you got interested in the world of social media, and what led you to this moment of deciding to create Panquake.
I became an activist in 2011 during the Occupy movement, and social media played an absolutely vital role in allowing us to circulate information that obviously was not available through mainstream channels. But social media also allowed us to connect with other activists all around the world, to organize and to collaborate and to share information with them. And it was really, in many ways, the backbone of the international organizing of the Occupy movement. As an activist and journalist in a variety of movements since then, movements, particularly anti-surveillance movements against the GCSB in New Zealand, also TPPA No Way, which was our movement against the Trans-Pacific Partnership, and a whole host of pro-whistleblower movements and events since then. Social media was our voice. It was our ability to educate the public. It was our ability to reach across borders, and it's just so vitally important. But unfortunately, our ability to communicate has been under persistent attack by corporations, by governments, by security agencies. And the increasing tide of censorship that has been a direct response to our activism and organizing activities and to independent journalism and media as a whole has been quite successful in suppressing our information. And where we have people taking risks, like whistleblowers and independent journalists, really putting themselves on the line to get the truth out there, it is completely unacceptable to me to sit by and do nothing as their voices get suppressed. I said at the launch event for panquake.com back in January of this year that, to me, it's one thing to take the brave decision to take risks and subject yourself to danger in many cases in order to circulate vitally important information. It's another thing entirely to take risks and not be able to circulate that information. And so Panquake is securing the future of communication for vitally important information that otherwise the public would not be able to know, see, or hear if we continue to be constrained by the suppression that we face from corporate platforms.
Yeah, that's absolutely true.
Yeah.
And Sean, I wanted to ask you as a security expert, you know, I've been talking over the past few months about how there's been this culture over the past, 1 or 2 decades where we just want everything for free. And people are starting to wake up to the fact that if something is free, you are the product.
Right.
And they're starting to understand the value of their data, and they're starting to understand exactly what it means when these companies mine that data and then either sell it off or, whatever nefarious shit they do with it. And so I do believe that there's a cultural shift beginning where we're starting to value our privacy again, and we're finally understanding that we don't want to be the product anymore, and that maybe it's worth it for everything to not be completely free in order for us to have some control over our lives. So as a privacy expert, what is it about Panquake that is different? What is it about it that drew you to it? And how do you think it can improve the way we do social media?
Well, certainly, I think you identify one of the most significant problems with the current sort of modern internet, if not the most significant one, which is that people are using these services with the idea that they're getting something for free, but they're obviously selling themselves, right? And that trade-off, if it's a trade-off at all, right? Most folks are not even really fully aware of it, and certainly aren't fully aware or even able to consent to the type of surveillance they're under. I mean, I always talk about privacy as autonomy. You can make choices now, which will have a far-flung effect on you in 5, 10, 15 years down the line, right? When you're going to do things like, apply for a job or, and being active politically obviously means that you are a target potentially and likely, and having lack of privacy on these platforms has a real serious effect. Panquake sort of gives us the opportunity to fulfill sort of the dream of the earlier internet. It really excites me because it harkens back to a world where we can actually have a platform where we actually get our speech out there to the folks we want to hear it. We're able to use tools without fear of surveillance, certainly, but also without ads being pushed into our face, without manipulation of our user experience, right? So I'm certainly excited about the privacy and security opportunities, starting with, the no ads promise, which we are very, very serious about, right? But also, we want to respect users. We want users to actually use a platform where they're not seeing content and they're not sure why they're seeing it, right? Or they know when they send something out that it's not going to disappear, or that replies to it aren't going to disappear, or that they're not going to be shadow banned in some other way. And Panquake certainly provides that sort of very serious respect, starting with the transparency of having an entire record in a blockchain ledger of the activity and interactions on the network. So that's very awesome stuff, and we're basically, taking that early promise of the internet, that hopeful, wonderful opportunity that being networked together and having a conversation across the world, across the globe, starting with that promise, but also correcting some of the ills of the past and of the current state of things. We can use modern, very cool, very cutting edge technology to not only fix these things, but take everything a little step further. Some other things which we're planning for for Panquake, and again, we're very serious about it, are making sure that users have control over their own information. We don't want to know who you are. We don't want to store information about you. We want information to flow through the network, flow through the servers on the network without caching that stuff, without building user profiles. So we're really building the platform for the average user, as well as whistleblowers, activists, etc.
Bringing us back to the early days of the internet is such a good way to put it, Sean. I was lucky enough to spend a couple hours with Sean and Susie getting a tour of Panquake and some of the new features, and I definitely want to talk about that. But we also spoke a little bit about how the early internet is so revolutionary because of the way that it interconnected people and that allowed people to connect outside and to communicate and to share ideas outside of the kind of mediation of major corporations of television. And so it wasn't one-way programming. It was people actually being able to speak to one another. And then that was formalized in, in online kind of public squares, which are the social media companies. Of course, what's happened since then is that is that the establishment, Wall Street, Silicon Valley, they've realized that big moneyed interest, both of the political parties, anyone who basically is not served by this system that exists in the United States or the status quo, economically and politically, is that having that amount of communication, that kind of coordination, that kind of organizing allows challenges that they did not face before, such as Bernie Sanders, for example. Having worked on the Bernie Sanders campaign, when Bernie launched his campaign, he started at 3% name recognition. When he had those first early rallies where he got 5,000 people that really blew up his campaign, took him to 100% name recognition, made the DNC have to cheat to stop him. It was really social media all along that enabled, and the internet that enabled the new organizing model, the crowdfund-based donations model, the new communications model, the way of getting your message out. And it was really, I think, in 2016, I would love to hear both your takes on this. It was really, I think, that in 2016 that the establishment realized what a threat the ability that ability to organize in a novel, unprecedented way was to their power and to the status quo. And so you saw the fake news kind of mantra emerge after that. You saw the tightening of social media companies. I remember when social media movement, social media groups like the Anti-Media were able to get just enormous reach, multiple millions of followers on Facebook, and just enormous reach. I think it was reaching tens of millions of people a week, and that has been collapsed to such an amazing degree. And then that has only kind of taken an even sharper turn after, of course, the 2020 election. And so I wonder if you could talk a little bit more about that context. And I think it's kind of like there's an effort from big tech to turn the internet back into television, one-way programming. You only see what we want you to see. And so I wonder if you could talk a little bit more about that and how Panquake fights that.
Yeah, so I mean, I think certainly the example you identify is very appropriate. I always point out that not shortly after the printing press and the ability for people to read things in their own native tongue, especially on paper, right, there were book burnings. You had books and then you had book burnings, right? So there's sort of this push by folks in power to gain control over systems that they think have gotten too powerful for ordinary folks, ordinary people, right? We certainly have seen that in the last 10, 15, 20 years even on the internet, where it has the ability, of course, to allow normal everyday people to reach a wide audience, to allow for movements, to allow for conversations, hopefully, right? Real active dialogue, not just being forced into some sort of artificial environment where you're, I don't know, sort of manipulated through a timeline. So that's the technology that I think we want to embrace. I want Susie to sort of talk about the features that Panquake has because they're totally her brainchild. But we have designed stuff into amazing new features into Panquake that go far beyond our privacy and security promises and that sort of thing. But they're really features that are going to empower users, not only respect them, but give them a microphone that they otherwise wouldn't have. So Susie, if you get into some of that stuff, that would be great.
Sure. So, I mean, as a freedom of information activist, and we have 30 volunteers and full-time staff members working on Panquake, all of whom are freedom of information activists, privacy activists. We absolutely, the core focus for us is protecting the user and having transparency for the platform and privacy for the users of the platform. But of course, we still want the platform to be fun. We want it to be cute. We want it to be accessible to the mainstream. And that's why we've got the whole pancake theme across, which Nick and Annalise have both had the chance to see. Our application interface is very cute, very accessible, absolutely gorgeously designed. And that's for that reason. We do want this to be something that serves everybody and not just activists or content creators, but also the audiences and the public at large. We also knew that we could quite easily build some really powerful new features for social reach, and we could create functionality in the platform which, instead of usurping users' time and addicting them to the platform, would actually diminish the amount of time they need to spend on social media to perform the tasks that they want to do on it. So we have employed techniques like what we call altruistic gamification, where you can earn things and gift things to other users, which will help them to boost their content and to penetrate their audience with key information. We, in particular, have built something called Thunderquakes. Thunderquakes are pre-scheduled messages that are, we have an internal currency of Thunderquake points, and that currency can't be purchased for dollars. That currency is earned by users for performing basic actions, and then the Thunderquake points are gifted to accounts that they really love. So in the case of Movement for a People's Party, supporters of the movement can gift Thunderquake points to MPP. MPP can then schedule these special Thunderquake messages, and when they schedule those messages, a notification goes out to every single follower of MPP and says, hey, MPP has scheduled this very special Thunderquake message. It's going to fire off next Tuesday at 5 p.m. This is the message. Would you like to help spread it? And if the follower says yes, they would, then on Tuesday at the appointed time when the Thunderquake message goes out, that message won't just be published to the MPP timeline, but actually simultaneously published to the timeline of every single follower who opted into supporting the circulation of that message, even if that follower is offline when that appointed scheduled time happens. And this means that you, as a supporter of MPP, can dramatically increase the reach of MPP's messages, because now MPP's message isn't only publishing to one timeline followed by however many people, but it could be published to thousands of timelines simultaneously. So that's just one example of where the act of gifting something to an organization that you care about can help that organization to spread vital messages far and wide. We also have an amazing curation feature called Panquakes, and that, of course, is what Panquake is named after, is that functionality, where in just a matter of a few clicks, you can select any quakes, any messages on our platform by any user that you choose to, or your own, and then you can stack those into a stack, which we call a Panquake. And when you do that, when you hit the stack button, it kicks you up a link, a shareable link, and you can take that link and SMS it to someone, email it to someone, post it on Facebook, post it on Twitter, put it wherever you want to on the internet. And when someone clicks on that link, they arrive at panquake.com and they see a timeline pre-populated with only the messages that you've selected. So MPP has some big event coming up. There's a lot of cool coverage from different people covering the event or quotes of speakers at the event. You can select the best content from that event, stack it into a single link, and put that link anywhere on the internet, and whoever clicks on that link is going to come and see just the best content that you've selected for them to see from that MPP event. So that's a couple of examples, but there's another one that for me, I know would save me a ton of time, and it will save probably a ton of people at MPP a lot of time too, because I'm sure that there's a lot of manual retweeting of the MPP timeline going on by people who work for MPP, and you can waste a lot of time actually sitting on Twitter going retweet, 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 retweet every day to copy over content from your organization or your groups onto your personal timeline. So we've developed something called Lovequake. And Lovequake allows you to, in exactly one click, turn on a function where all of the content posted by an account that you trust 100% to only post content that you want to see on your timeline, to have that content blanket copy to your timeline, again, even when you're offline. So for me, as a WikiLeaks supporter, I can click Lovequake on WikiLeaks timeline, and every single thing that WikiLeaks posts is going to copy to my timeline without me ever having to sit there and do manual actions in order to copy over that content. And then even if I'm asleep or I'm out to dinner or I'm doing whatever else, WikiLeaks content is still going to copy to my timeline and be visible to all of my followers. So we've really tried to keep it fun. We've created a bunch of new features that don't exist on any other social media platform. All of those features are based around the concepts of goodwill, giving, relationship building, really feel-good interaction between people to increase the relationship building between people, just allow them to bringing people closer together and allowing them to collaborate and strengthen each other's abilities to expand their social reach and spread their messages, and while at the same time respecting their privacy. And I just want to be really clear, because it's something I get asked a lot actually about our platform. I get asked about, what about if a corporation comes and signs up for your platform? Are they going to be able to get Thunderquakes? Are they going to be able to use these features? Will that affect or impact the regular user's experience? I want to be really clear that we treat corporations on our platform the same way as we treat Joe Blogs down the street. A corporation pays $5 a month. Joe Blogs pays $5 a month. Each of them get followed by whoever chooses to follow them. Their content will be seen only by people who choose to follow them. You will never have a corporation's content show up on your timeline on Panquake unless you have personally elected and chosen to follow that corporation and to see their content. So yes, they will be able to use these functions, but only to their followers. They can't ever get past their followers. They can't ever show up on your timeline. There's no paid boosting of content. There's no ability to purchase some higher grade of subscription. It is a perfectly flat, level playing field. Someone today told me it's very egalitarian, and I thought that was a fair comment, actually. We believe that everybody should have the same ability to spread messages. They should have the same fair shot at building a following.
Yeah, which, like, I think, by the way, I want to read some chats from some of the people watching right now. So Jeannie Schmidt says, it will be so great not to be the product and not to have our relationships disrupted and manipulated. Bringing back humanity to the online social connection. Great work, MPP, and totally right on points, Nick, about people realizing and taking back their power because of social media. Panquake is here to assure this gorgeous t-shirt, Annalise. Why, thank you. You can go to peoplesparty.org and get one yourself right now. So it's like, and honestly, guys, everybody that I've talked to about this is it out yet? Like, they're so ready. And look, I am not speaking for the People's Party. I am speaking for Annalise Garcia. I am so excited about this, you guys, because like, we need options. We need something different. We need something that doesn't allow all of this BS content to get spread out just because CNN or Fox News posted it. But, you know, everybody else gets censored. And I want to talk for a minute about the censorship, because I personally experienced that. You know, I had my YouTube channel for the Annalise Show, and it's really funny because as soon as I started talking about the People's Party and Julian Assange and like all these things that I'm not supposed to talk about, all of a sudden YouTube terminates my account. Not suspends, but like completely terminates it, saying that it's dangerous content. And they wouldn't go any further than that. And that's how I started streaming on Rokfin. And so I am personally so excited for us to have options like Rokfin, like Odysee, like Panquake, because we're having situations like, for example, Status Coup and Jordan Chariton. They had footage from the January 6th incident at the Capitol, and they had, sold that footage so that other outlets like MSNBC could use it. And somehow YouTube decided that that footage was dangerous on Status Quo's channel, but not on MSNBC's channel. So there is some really clear bias and censorship going on here. So what do you guys have to say to creators who are looking for a safe place to actually create their content without being censored? What is Panquake's stance on censorship?
Well, I think certainly what you point out is correct, right? Activists, creators, artists, thinking people around the world who have really looked at the problem of control of the information system, right? We've been talking about for a long time control of the information system. And that conversation, I think, especially in the late 20th century, primarily focused on, these huge corporate conglomerates, right? Monopolies controlling things like television and radio and shaping news that gets printed and so on and so forth, right? But the social media platforms, what we're now basically newly calling big tech, right? Big tech is certainly a term that hasn't been around very long. Terminology like surveillance capitalism, which is what Shoshana Zuboff writes about. Those terms are brand new to our vocabulary, right? But at least for the past 10 years, we've had intermediaries, which we're now calling big tech, inserting themselves into the information system, controlling the conversation, becoming intermediaries for nearly everything we do. And having smartphones, having internet-connected devices everywhere, certainly having cameras built in everywhere has sort of changed our relationship with these intermediaries to the point where they have a massive amount of control. Censorship is a big part of that, but I also always like to point out that there's also manipulation and control of the conversation, which we wouldn't necessarily call direct censorship, right? But it's just sort of allowing acceptable conversations on a certain part of the spectrum, shaping what people read, shaping what sort of directing conversations and directing who people are connecting to and who they're not connecting to. And those kinds of things are as insidious, as terrible as traditional, just more blatant censorship, which I think we're also seeing a lot more of. Certainly with COVID-19 and the pandemic, a lot of these platforms have shifted to artificial intelligence moderation. And it became a lot more blatant for a lot of people, right? All of a sudden, people are seeing much more serious spanning happening in an automated way with unaccountable software, right? As the only, mechanism, they'll report something and not get a reply. They'll not know exactly why something happened or didn't happen, et cetera, et cetera. Where Panquake is concerned, I think there's a few things built into the design of it, which certainly you also see on some of these alternative, I like calling them replacement platforms, like the Rockfins of the world and so on. Certainly, we are much more serious about allowing people to have conversations, not doing the kind of moderation and censoring that you would see in big tech. But we also are having conversations that are opt-in. And that's an important thing, I think, to sort of emphasize. People are going to see what they want to see in Panquake. They follow someone, they see their content, right? They look up a topic, they search for a hashtag or some sort of topic. They want to talk about, I don't know, turtles or something. And then they will see content about turtles. So, I mean, that's the kind of baseline sort of rules that you can build into a network when you're not interested in manipulating people. We don't care about dwell time and eyeballs on advertising, and we're not trying to send somebody down some sort of rabbit hole so that we can serve up some ads to them, right? And when you're not doing those things, you can allow people to decide for themselves exactly what they want to see and don't want to see. So I think that's something we've taken very serious in the sort of architectural design of the network from the get-go. And I think in some respects that separates Panquake as well from some of the alternative networks too.
I think we're breaking the secrecy paradigm. wherever you get this nefarious activity by corporations or governments, it's always predicated upon their ability to maintain some secrecy around their actions. And I talked earlier about platform transparency, and what that means for Panquake is that we are exposing our actions as a network to our users and allowing them to judge those actions. So when we moderate any content that is illegal on our platform, there is a public record of that moderation. You know whose account we moderated, what message we moderated, what we did to that message, when we did it to that message, who did it to that message, and why we did it to that message. And you can't say that about any other social media company that I'm aware of right now. They constantly censor users. They constantly moderate content. They shut down accounts, suspend and ban people. And you don't know when they did it. You don't know why they did it. You don't know any of the details about that. And so we're trying to just turn that paradigm on its head, allow the users to see what's going on that would otherwise be behind closed doors. But at the same time, like I said earlier, giving privacy to the users. We don't need to know about them. They do need to know about us and what we're doing and how we're doing it. And so we're making sure that they have that visibility.
That's a really admirable. Go ahead, Susie.
Just add, I'm so sorry, that also extends to public information which the user intends to be public and actions which the user takes. There is a permanent blockchain record. If I follow Annalise can click through and see the block record that proves I followed her. If I unfollow her, there's a block record to prove the unfollow. So that's going to get rid of this constant manipulation of followings right now. On Panquake, if 1,000 people follow you, you know that they've followed you, and that follow account is not going to be manipulated by us.
That is admirable. That's an admirable transition in transparency that comes from building it on the blockchain, and that's one of the things that excites me most about the prospect of Panquake. I think we would be remiss if we didn't mention just some of the incredible people who have gotten behind the idea and the concept of Panquake, and some of whom are actively working to build it or to promote it, including Bill Binney, the whistleblower, the NSA whistleblower and ex-technical director, Christine Assange, Julian Assange's mother, Garland Nixon, a friend of the movement, Graham Elwood, Jimmy Dore, Lori Love, Lee Camp, Nico House, Peter Lavelle, Ray McGovern, and of course, Sean, who's right here with us. And so it really is an amazing group of people, many friends of MPP here who are standing up, many friends of the People's Party who recognize the simultaneous importance of having an electoral alternative that is free of corporate money, and the profit motive, and just as it is necessary and important and vital to have a social media and information infrastructure and communication system that is likewise free of the profit motive and of control from big corporations. And so I wanted to, well, Annalise, do you have any questions you wanted to ask?
Yeah, well, one of the things that, I wanted to ask you guys about was the way that MPP is going to, or MPP, you guys are MPP, the way that Panquake is going to be structured to make sure that everybody has access to it. So can you guys tell us a little bit about what are compassionate accounts?
Sure. So compassionate accounts are an opportunity for users to basically spend more money, purchase accounts for other folks. If someone is not able to subscribe to the platform, and we know there are a lot of folks who are in a rough situation, certainly with the pandemic, also in the global south and in other places where it may be difficult to scrape up $5 to be on a social network. Compassionate accounts are going to allow those users to basically apply for an account. We'll look at that application, and then we will basically gift them those accounts, which are really gifted downstream, right, from other users. So it's very cool stuff. We've spoken to a lot of folks who say, yeah, of course, I'll spend, $10, $15, $20 a month instead of $5. I'd be happy for other folks who really need that account to be able to interact and be paid for. So that's an incredible thing. Obviously, we have a subscription model because we want to be upfront with our users, and we're not selling our users. We're not selling data about our users. So it is really important for us to have a sort of upfront business model, right? But we do understand that folks need to have access regardless. The other thing that you can do as well is gift accounts. So, if you have a family, you can also, of course, pay for your family's accounts or your friends' accounts and things like that, and gift those accounts directly to an individual that you know. So I really expect that to be a killer feature. I really expect a certain percentage of the network, and we don't know what yet, but I really think it's going to be a pretty high percentage of the network is going to be either compassionate or gifted accounts or some combination of that. And I think that's something that's that I don't see anywhere else with paid platforms. So it's another area that Panquake is definitely innovating once again. So
the focus on
one last thing. Sorry, Nick. One last thing I wanted to ask about that. I just thought about it, and I'm really curious about. There are certain countries where it is very difficult to get on certain platforms, right? For example, I have family in Cuba. I was born there, and it is very difficult for them to access certain things. Is Panquake going to be accessible to everyone, no matter what part of the world they're in?
So we are going to try our damnedest to make sure that's true, right? We're thinking very seriously from an architectural standpoint about censorship circumvention from that level, right? Making sure that we can have users who get around country blocks, having alternative ways to access the network, such as, Tor versions of the sites, right? So we are looking at the architecture that way. Certainly, it's going to be a bit of a battle. It's one of the reasons that, Panquake.com is going to need your help, your support, your donations, right? We are, in a very real sense, building a model here that is not only very decentralized, that is not only focusing on the user and also peer-to-peer style interaction between users. We're not just building some social node and some centralized server somewhere that's sitting on, my shelf here in the United States, right? Or some provider somewhere like Amazon AWS or something. We're staying away from all of that. We're making sure that we're putting our infrastructure in the most privacy respecting and also, difficult to circumvent places in the world, such as Iceland. And we will, of course, have to build all kinds of tricks and tools and somersaults to try to make sure people in places like Cuba, in places that even have low connectivity, right? If you're in the middle of a war zone and you need to get information out, we want you to be able to do that. So we're hoping we're going to have a lot of help on that from sort of affinity groups, activists, other folks who see what we're doing and really want to support what we're doing. And I think as we start to deliver the platform to people, as people start seeing it in action, as we continue to have these kinds of conversations, there will be a lot more of that. So,
yeah. And by the way, the professor, I remembered his name. It's Shelley Kagan.
No, I don't know her. I will say maybe
he has this great course on death, and I was like, I was in the middle of realizing that I'm gonna die one day, and so I just had to watch his course on YouTube, and I was like, oh, thanks, Shelley, I feel better.
Okay. I was gonna say it might be easier to teach about death than it is to teach about cybersecurity, which is what I taught at Yale.
Yeah. Go ahead, Nick. Go ahead.
I was wondering a couple of things that came up when we spoke, and that I know people are always wondering. And so the first is, okay, it sounds amazing. What's the timeline? When's it going to be ready? What are you anticipating? And I know there's a lot of uncertainty. A lot of it depends on how quickly you can fundraise and bring people on board. And another question is, how do you build in as much resiliency as possible into the corporate governance structure and the legal control over the entity so that it doesn't, it can't be sold. It can't fold, because I think that people are very much looking for something that they can confide in, that they can say, okay, this is going to be the thing. And I know that the creators, I know that the founders, aren't going to turn around one day and whether they want to sell it, And so I know that you've built in mechanisms into your constitution to avert that. And of course, on top of the dedication of all of each of the, the commitments of each of the people involved as whistleblowers, as people who've devoted their lives to these causes. And so I wonder if you could talk a little bit about both of those.
You want to take the first question, Sean? I'll take the second.
Sure. So, I think we are moving much more swiftly than anyone anticipated. Now that we have a full-time developer and other folks that we're bringing on to really work full-time on the product, things are progressing very quickly. Actual timeline, Susie, I'd rather have you kind of nailed down.
Okay, no problem. So this is easy for me because I was a delivery manager for major corporate builds in New Zealand. This is literally my trade as a software development manager and delivery manager. Corporate builds are slow and corporate builds are expensive. And corporate builds have giant budgets and they have giant problems because they do things very inefficiently. The Panquake team has been hand selected by me. Every single person is someone I've worked with before, either professionally in software development or in activism and journalism. And that has given our team an unprecedented cohesiveness. Everyone can rely on everyone else. Everyone works together extremely well. We have an incredible working environment on our project. But we also have had incredible and almost unprecedented support from the public. It was only January 17th when we pitched the public an idea of a project that we could create with their support. We estimated it would take us 2 months to raise the first $50,000 that we needed just to establish the core of the business, just to register the business, just to do the accounting and legal, to set up the entity of Panquake. We met that target in 3 weeks, in 21 days. So we were ahead of schedule from that point. We have then launched our second funding round, which was to recruit full-time developers to develop the beta product. Remarkably, we have got up to $124,000 already of the $167,000 we need. So we're at about 74% complete on that second fundraising round. The sooner we get to that 100% mark, the sooner I can hire the rest of the developers we need to produce the beta, and the faster we will move. We had spectacular fundraising in April. Because of that, I was able to bring more full-time staff on in May. In May, we're at 10 days ahead on our production schedule. If we can push through to that 167,000, hit that 100% mark on the beta fundraising, the sooner it happens, the faster or the more velocity our project will gain. So if you go and check out panquake.com, hit donate, throw $5 our way or whatever it is that you can afford to contribute to this project, you will be helping to speed up the delivery. I am not someone who's going to break promises to the public, and so I haven't given fixed delivery time schedules, because for me as a professional software delivery manager, I base my delivery schedule off estimations. My estimations are based off the resources I have in terms of the number of developers and how quickly they can move through the tasks. So once I can complete this current funding round and hire on the additional developers, I will be getting completed estimations. I will have a much better idea of how quickly we'll move through the tasks, and I will be able to set a firm delivery schedule. So it really comes down to how quickly we're able to get that financial support from the public as to how quickly we'll deliver the product. But I can tell you that a build of the scale and size of this enterprise in the corporate sphere is a $3 to $10 million build with a roughly 2-year time frame. Already, I can tell you for sure we will be delivering in less than 1 year from the original campaign launch, just based on how quickly we're already moving through it. That could be as soon as 8 months if we can get through our funding rounds as quickly as I would like to. So that's where we're at in terms of delivery. In terms of governance structure, the product is revolutionary, the project is revolutionary, but actually the entire structure of our business is also revolutionary. From day one of this project, we've asked ourselves the really hard questions. How do we build a business that can't be taken down by lawfare? How do we build a product where we will never suffer a data breach of user information? The answers for us were, we put the business in jurisdictions that are out of the reach of hostile forces. We have registered in jurisdictions that are unable, where hostile forces are literally unable to launch lawsuits against us. So our legal structure is safe, our finances are safe. We are hosting, as Sean said, in Iceland, which has a lot of data protections. But in terms of making sure that there will never be a breach of Panquake user data and then published on the internet, the answer to that is simple. We just don't collect the information. We don't collect your full name. We don't collect your email address. We don't collect your mobile phone number. We don't collect your credit card information. When you pay your $5, someone I can see is asking if you can pay by Bitcoin or other crypto. Yes, you can. Go to panquake.com, hit crypto, and you'll see there's about 12 options there for crypto, including both Zcash and Monero if you're a privacy buff. And the same with our platform. You'll also be able to pay your $5 a month via Monero or via Zcash or any of the other cryptocurrencies. And if you need to pay by credit card, we send you out away from our site to the merchant provider portals, and you do your card processing there. And we have built our system very carefully in such a way that when you return from the merchant site into panquake.com, you do not bring any of your personal data with you. We only get a notice that you have completed your payment. We don't know what type of card you used, what the card number is. We don't know your address, your phone number, nothing. And that's done very deliberately because we are making sure we will never, ever suffer any type of breach of your user data because we don't collect it. In terms of our business constitution, we made a commitment as the executive that we will not sell our company. We will not sell the shares in our company. No executive can sell the shares. Shares can be inherited only. And so there is obviously has to be a line of succession. But there's also a line of succession for the code base, and that is that we are a free and open source software product. We are publishing the complete Panquake code base with our beta release. And that means that no matter what happens to us as individuals or as a team, as a project, the world will have access to the technology that we have built going forward for generations. There can always be other Panquakes, other groups of people who pick up the torch and run with it if for some reason we can't. And that for us is the most important fail-safe that we have, is taking what we have built with the contributions of our donors and placing that into the hands of all of humankind so that they can progress and utilize it for years going forward.
I do have a question from one of our viewers. Vicky Adams wants to know, could you guys talk about what will be available for people who are blind or deaf?
Yeah, well, certainly accessibility and making sure that the product is useful and wonderful, featureful for folks who have disabilities is a focus that we're very serious about. We have actually brought someone on recently who is an expert and also a huge disability advocate, and has a lot of great thoughts about real world implementation, the kinds of experiences she knows and that other folks she knows in the disabled community. And so we not only will, of course, make sure that we're following the kinds of standards that a lot of folks don't follow, unfortunately, with accessibility, screen readers, text-only versions of functionality, and so on. But we're going to have someone who can give us direct feedback, who is very much dialed into networks of folks who have disabilities, who experience this, every single day, and can give us direct feedback on how to make the product better in that way as well. Already in just a few conversations, it's certainly opened my eyes, and I think some other folks who are working on the project, to some things that I would have never thought of. So having someone who can give us that direct experience is shaping the product from day one. And that I think is going to be a wonderful thing. So yes, we're going to make sure that we we want the thing to be useful to everyone. We want also, I should mention, internationalization. We're very serious about, right? We don't want to create this sort of Silicon Valley central, we're not in Silicon Valley, right? We're a distributed team. We're all over the place. We are freedom of information activists. We want to have a real international conversation. So we're serious about that as well. And we are bringing folks on who can help us to translate and have functionality for folks all over the world. So certainly localization, internationalization, and accessibility are a big focus.
Sean, I promised these guys that I would give at least one spoiler. So I think I'll do that. Talking about delivery, we've tried to be really transparent about our development and delivery process. So on the last Saturday of every single month, I give a public presentation and I show all of the work that our production team has accomplished within that month, and I give all updated campaign statistics. I account for every last dollar we've been donated and how our social media platforms have grown and what we will be doing in the following month. And I am happy for you guys to kind of get the first peek at something that we have coming up at this Saturday's delivery meeting. And it's specifically around internationalization and what Sean was just talking about. Panquake is so invested in spreading information, particularly around censorship and the ways people are being censored and the corporate abuses against content creators and audiences at large, that we want to not just create a platform where people can circulate that information, but we also want to be a source to educate people about what is happening now in those spheres. So we have developed a new video platform and a new long-form journalism avenue that we are not just publishing in English, but we will actually, in the month of June, begin publishing both in video and long form in English, Spanish, Portuguese, German, French, and Norwegian. So Panquake is going international. We will be publishing content in 6 languages in the month, starting from the month of June. And we have some pretty cool, familiar faces that many of you will know who will be fronting that material. So there you go. You heard it here first.
That is fantastic. People's Party exclusive, everyone.
Extra, extra.
The thing about People's Party that really strikes me, and also about Panquake, is, and I feel this so strongly, that this is about creating solutions. I feel like I know for the last 10 years, I have been screaming to the high heavens about all of the problems in the world, really trying to alert people, hey, there's issues here, and trying to educate them about the issues and trying to get them to take action about the issues. But Panquake is really creating a tangible solution that people can engage with to what is a massive problem. And MPP does the same thing, right? I mean, we've known since Occupy and long before that the two-party system is rigged against everybody, that it is to everybody's detriment that this archaic paradigm is allowed to continue to dominate discourse. And MPP is providing a solution. And I very much feel like that's the next level of activation, is to build solutions, build ways forward, create these bulwarks that people can throw their weight behind, and get together and become a collective force rather than just being disparate and siloed and isolated. And I think, was it Annalise or someone was talking to me today about our original launch slogan with Panquake is, we don't hope, we build, right? And by building, we gain hope. but it's the action of building that is the most important thing in creating those solutions. So that's why I really appreciate every single person who is spending their days creating those solutions, just as you are and just as we're trying to do. And also every member of the public who goes and backs us in that. You're the ones who are empowering us to build and deliver this platform for you. It's your thirst for change and your participation that is allowing this to become a reality.
I couldn't agree more. And I think that's why it's been so great to see Panquake and to talk to you guys tonight, because we're moving beyond, like you said, a kind of cynicism to creating solutions, to actually create what is the next generation going to look like of social media platforms, of political parties. And so it is great to kindred spirits in the social media realm, and it's been great getting to know the platform. And I know that I'm not alone in the People's Party in saying that we're very much looking forward to the introduction of the platform. And so if there are any closing words that either of you want to share, like where people can catch that update that you're going to make on Saturday, and how people can follow the progress, please go ahead.
Sure. I just want to make sure I echo really quickly Susie's comments there. I mean, so much of the conversation now that people are aware of the problem with big tech is about reforming Facebook or changing Twitter or somehow shaming the founders of these organizations into doing better, right? And we are building a replacement for that. Right. And that's such an important thing to be doing, I think. And that is where MPP and I think our ideas definitely align. If you want to learn more about Panquake, of course, you can go out to panquake.com. The fundraiser, the crowdfunder is at gogetfunding.com/Panquake, which, of course, you can also reach from the Panquake website. Go out there, support us. Your donations go directly into this work, and you'll see we're very active giving updates all the time about the project. We will be doing that delivery meeting tomorrow. And we'll be doing that through our social channels, primarily our social channels you'll see on Twitter, which will announce that. Also, we'll be posting video on our website. We'll be posting it to a number of different sites, Vimeo, YouTube, etc. So, yeah, keep track of us. And I don't know the exact time, Susie. What time are we doing that tomorrow?
I think the video will be released 10 p.m. Eastern, 7 p.m. West Coast. Off the top of my head. Great. Yeah, and if you go to panquake.com and click on the tech section and scroll down, you'll see a whole video reel, and you can see each of our monthly deliveries. And I think if people are super interested in Panquake, it's quite important to go back through those deliveries, because I like people to see that every single month we've been keeping our promises. Every single month we come through on what we said we would do the month before. And this month we get to come through on things even faster than I otherwise expected.
I'm sorry, my tortoise.
That's fantastic. You're a turtle. It's a tortoise. Excuse me.
That's why I mentioned turtles, but it's a tortoise. He got out of his enclosure earlier, and he tried to knock down my video setup. So I thought I'd give him some screen time.
So when you said earlier, if you just want to look up turtles, you were speaking from like personal experience.
That's
Sean.
right. I will be the first one.
Ask Sean. Ask Sean what else he's got living with him.
You don't even want to know. A lot of animals, chickens, quail, all kinds.
That is awesome. Nick, do you have any final thoughts before we close it out?
That's all. I'm just. I really love the philosophy of altruism. I'm a big believer. I'm a sociologist. That's by training, and so I'm a big believer that that society and the incentive structures and structures that we create shape the way that we act. And right now, we've put people into these platforms, these social media platforms, and these political parties, just like the political parties in this economic structure, that brings out the worst in people, and it incentivizes, whether it is the taking of big corporate money when you run for office, or whether it is, being sociopaths economically, the rising to the top that become CEOs, most likely to become CEOs. because you don't have any kind of empathy towards what it takes to do that to your work, what you're doing to your workers. And so I believe that just as those incentive structures push people towards the worst kind of behaviors, that is a choice that we get to make. It's a choice that we get to make in our economy, in our politics, in our society, in our social media, about the incentive structures. And so the thing that probably inspired me most was to hear Susie and Sean talking about the altruistic element, and how when you get a panquake, when you get to kind of like spread your message out the most, you gift that to someone else. You don't get to keep that. And so you get to support someone, just like, you can buy profiles for others, just like you can have love quakes that share their content automatically, kind of like an automatic retweet. That I find really inspiring, because I think that is ultimately getting to the heart of where the solution lies to so many of our problems. It is creating the structures that incentivize people, that align personal interests with societal interests. When you have an incentive structure that makes it so that your personal interest to succeed personally within a certain system, so whether it's social media, politics, economics, is to do what is best for the collective, is to do what is best for the majority, that's when you get a better society. And that's what I see in Panquake. That's what we're doing as the People's Party. And so it's just been great to talk to you guys, and I look forward to following the progress and the development of Panquake. And thank you to everyone who's tuned in for a great episode of the People's Party to hear this. I know everybody's going to be following too. So
those are amazing.
This has been a great episode. I really liked it.
Yeah, and that just made me think, who are our masters? Who do we serve? And in the case of MPP and the case of Panquake, our masters are the public. We serve the public. That's where our funding comes from, and that's the service that we provide is to the public.
So our success is rooted in your support, and it's in how well we inspire your confidence to support us. And that's specific. That is what keeps us honest. That's what makes for great platforms. That's what makes for a great political party. And that's, that is the future. And Elise, anything else?
Yeah, I just want to say, I'm really honored to be working with two organizations that are getting smeared by the same people. It just feels really good, It just feels like I'm on the right path. Thank you for letting me know, haters. Thank you for letting me know I'm doing well. And it's super exciting to see that we've had all these problems for so long, and we've talked about the problems for so long, but now we're not just talking about the problems. We're coming up with solutions, and that's what it's all about. So I really encourage you guys, go to panquake.com, go to peoplesparty.org, support these organizations that are actually trying to break away from these establishments that are crushing all of us, and actually build something new that's going to bring solutions to the table and not just talk. And go to peoplesparty.org and you can get your People's Party shirt. Nick, show them your mug. You can also get a mug. Show them your mug. Get a mug. You can get a mug. Go get that mug. All right. And I want to thank our guests so much. Susie Dawson, Sean O'Brien, and his tortoise. Okay. Thank you guys. It kills me. Thank you guys so much. This was so great. This has been the latest episode of the People's Party podcast, and we will see you guys next time.
Awesome.
Here's
Thanks so much.
Starting new solutions and building fresh. Thanks, everyone. Have a good night.
Bye, everyone.